Hey guys, Nikki here, and today I'm here with another mini basic, which is assembly and cleaning up miniatures. This is a part of a series that we're calling Mini Basics, and it's some of the frequently asked questions I get from my Twitch stream, from socials. They may be helpful for those who are either getting to the hobby for the first time or coming back from a long break. We'll be doing more videos like this, so if you find it helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and check out the rest of the playlist. Today we're going to be looking at plastic miniatures. This is the kit that I've picked out, Eldari Guardians. This is from our backlog, needs to get built, seemed perfect for today, so we're going to dive into that. We're also going to look at all the different tools that I use when I am assembling miniatures so you can see how they work, which ones might be best for you. This is going to be just plastic today. Metal and resin miniatures need a little bit of additional cleanup and kind of prep work to get started. So I'm going to save that for another video where we're going to do tips and tricks specifically for those miniatures, so it'll just be plastic for today. When that video is up though, I'll make sure I update the video description down below so that you can follow us over there. But yeah, plastic miniatures today, let's head over to the hobby desk. Alright, I've pulled out all the tools that we're going to be using today. We can go over them here before we dive in. I've got the kit, so that Guardians kit we showed in the intro here. I've also got two different types of glues, and we'll talk through those when we get to kind of that stage, but I've got a super glue and then a plastic glue, which is Tamiya extra thin cement. Next up, I've got clippers. So these are a cheap Xuron branded that I got at the hobby store. You don't need anything super fancy. And then an X-Acto knife. I feel like this is kind of the basics for what you need, but I do have a couple optional ones that if you think they would be really helpful, good to pick up. This one is a molds line remover from Citadel, or for Games Workshop. So that is good for removing seam lines from miniatures. We'll go over that a little bit later as we get some pieces out. The one that I probably use the most are these sanding sticks. So these are from Micro Mesh, but what they are is they're a stick with sandpaper on them. So you can see this is a coarse one, and you can see how much I use it. But there are different grits of the sandpaper. They come in a shape like this, or there are also these smaller ones, and you can see the different colors are the different grits. Depending on what you think would be useful for your building, I can recommend these. I will also put links to these in the description in case you want to check them out. But for now, let's take a look at what is actually in the kit so you know what to expect when you pick up a warhammer kit. Opening this up here. And here, the piece is moving around already. When you open this up, you will have... So this comes with our instructions. So this is the instruction book we'll be using to put together the miniatures. This one comes with decals, so these are water slide transfers or decals, so they've got the different craft worlds and things that I can apply to my miniatures. It also comes with bases, so here's all the bases for the miniatures, and then the sprues, which are what these are called, for all of the different pieces of the miniatures. Looking at these, you can see that they are numbered, and that the numbers will correspond with the instructions. So that is everything that you will have in the kit here. I will say, before you dive in, these kits usually have different options. So if you're wanting to build a sergeant model or a leader model, for example, those options are shown in the instructions like this. So we have blue, which are the defenders, and storm guardians in the green. So depending on what you want to build, what's in your army list or in your codex, that's kind of how they show the difference here. So the instructions for one will be blue, instructions for one will be green. They also do that for specific parts. So here the weapon and the head option are different, as opposed to if you wanted this to go with the Storm Guardians. So I would say at this point, if you need to go through the codex, through your army list to determine what you want to build before you start cutting anything out of the sprues, this is kind of a good place to plan. The other helpful thing is they do have these for the base sizes. So if you open up your bases and you're not sure what size, or maybe you've kept bases from previous kits and you need to know what size, you can line them up in here to see which is which. So that is, I'll kind of flip through the instructions so you can see here. There's different head options. Again, if you want to look at the different loadouts, those are all here. I think flipping through the instructions can be really helpful to start with, just to see kind of what you might need to figure out ahead of time. If there's anything, I think the only pain point, and I will point out, is sometimes when there are weapon options, they're not labeled. So trying to match up which weapon matches the profile and the name from the codex. If you can do a little bit of research ahead of time so you know which weapon you want, that would be a tip that I kind of, like here, they're all listed here. But it doesn't say which is which. So doing a quick little, maybe a Google search to see which weapon is the one that you're wanting to build. I would do that ahead of time before you start snipping out parts. So let me reset my camera so we're a little bit closer view, and we will go ahead and start to build our first Guardian. Okay, we've got our camera pulled in, so it's a little bit easier to see what we're working on here. I'm going to walk through kind of what I've picked out and looking at the codex and everything. I only have one unit of Guardian Defenders, so I'm going to go ahead and build another so that I've got enough for battle line and just to kind of fill out my force. So I'm going to go in with the blue section with a leader. So as I go through this and kind of flip ahead, do that planning we were talking about. For this kit, this one has both sets starting with 1 and 2, so you can see it's labeled for all Guardians, steps 1 and 2. And this is because, for both kits, they both have just legs and torsos all together. So getting that together for both, you don't have to decide which one you're building for which. You'll see markers for times 10, so that is how many times you are doing that step, which for this step is just gluing to the base, so nothing crazy there. And then when you move to step 3, that's when it changes to the Defenders, which is what we're going to build. This also has an area for interchangeable parts. That's what this piece means here. And that basically means you get to pick which one you want to do. So whether that's weapon options, head options, things like that. For the Eldar, we've got helmets or non-helmeted options, so it'll be a lot of that. And then kind of the poses, positioning that you want. Those can be interchanged for the models. And then the next piece here is the variants. So for me, we're going to be doing 9 of our regular dudes. So if you wanted just regular, no sergeant, you would build 10 of these. I'm going to be adding in a leader. So that is what I'm going to build for my squad. For the video today, I'm just going to build a normal Guardian and follow the instructions for that just so you can see how that works. But if I wanted to build that leader here on stream, here is the purple section for that miniature. You can see here he gets a different backpack, a different kind of hand option. He's either got like a pointing or he's got a little binocular type thing, and then the weapon is off to the side. So he even gets like a different pose as the leader. But yeah, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to build a Guardian Defender. So I'm going to start right here at step number 1. We are also going to use our first tool. So removing the pieces from the sprue, I like to use the clippers. And we are looking for pieces 37 and 38. Depending on the kit, sometimes they are close together. Sometimes you're going to have to go through the sprues to find the pieces you need, and they won't be close together. I have found they tend to group if you've got options like the leader. Those kind of pieces will be together but on a different sprue than maybe the regular troop. But it depends on the kit. Older kits I feel like are a little bit more spread out, where the newer ones are a little nicer to have all together. I'm just clipping out the 2 legs. One tip I can share is if you have a piece that's a bit thinner, cutting away from the piece will take pressure off the piece itself. So let's say I wanted to clip out this leg, but I was a little worried. Maybe it's a little bit thinner. Switching it so that I'm cutting closer to the sprue and further away from the piece itself helps to remove some of the pressure there. So if you have things like stabs, thinner pieces, that can help too. So you'll take more of the actual sprue off with it, but then we'll clean it down where there's not so much pressure on the piece itself. But we have our first 2 pieces out, so clippers first to remove. At this point, I usually switch to my X-Acto. What we're going to do is we're going to just come in and remove the little bit of extra that is coming from the sprue. So we don't need quite all of this now that it is off. And I'm just kind of running it along to take that extra little nub off. There. We'll come back for that on the leg. We've got another little nub here. Just remove that. One on his foot. Just give it a good look. No rush. You want to make sure to get as much as you can, because once we get paint on, it's going to be much more difficult to go back and all the little nubs. I like to do another once over before we actually prime the miniature. One on the back of the calf here. Just using the X-Acto to get a lot of that nub off. I would say knife safety, do as I say. I like to cut toward myself because I feel like I have more control. General knife safety is to cut away. If you can cut away this way instead, especially as you were getting started and learning how to use the X-Acto knife, that is general knife safety. I do this full time, and I find that I have a lot more control the other way, but just be careful, especially with a new blade. You can cut yourself pretty easily, so just be careful there. With the nubs removed, I'm going to show the other tools that I think are kind of optional, but they may help, especially if you're a slower builder like I am. The first one I want to show is that mold line remover. So what this is on the pieces you'll see, and especially down this leg you can see, is there is a seam line. And essentially what that is while the miniature is being made, that is where the mold has been pushed together, and that's where the plastic has come up. So that is that seam where the mold is actually meeting. What this mold line remover does is it's a flat, like not sharp, very blunt, that can be used to remove this mold line. So you just scrape it along here. It removes that mold line, keeps the shape of the figure, as opposed to if I were coming in with the X-Acto knife, you can kind of correct more divots and things as you go. This helps to prevent those divots, is the really nice part. So you can just go right down this leg, along that seam, and take away that mold line. So that is really helpful if you are someone like me who hates doing that with an X-Acto knife, if you're a slower builder, if you don't like that process. This, I feel like it's a little pricey, but it can go a long way in getting, especially if you have an entire army that you're building. I think it is worth it. The other one that I tend to use a bit more, and I'll try and find another mold line here we can use, so we've got the other side here, are those sanding sticks. So same tool, same purpose. If we take this along the mold line and remove that there, now we are filing down that seam line. We're not creating the divots, we're kind of blending it into the surface around it. Wipe that away there. Now that seam line is gone. So both of these tools are great for removing those different seam lines here. And I'm going to kind of work around the miniature here. Shoulders. I kind of just go in a little circle. Blends in with the rest of the material. I think the sanding sticks are especially great for things like legs. So I don't have a Space Marine here today, but usually they have like a seam right down the middle of a leg, across the knee, which can be really a pain if you're trying to do it with the X-Acto knife. Where this, you can just kind of blend it into the surface itself and not have to worry about creating a divot and having to kind of fill around that later. Back of the calf. If you had one on the base of the foot, I'll just make sure that's nice and even. And just like that. Got two pieces that we've now kind of cleaned up. I'm gonna get the inside real quick. That is kind of a thing you can watch too, is kind of following where that mold line is. You can kind of guess where the other places you would need to clean up are. So, other side of the leg, sense. The thigh here. Right. And I think for demonstration, we're good. So now that we've got our two pieces, the next tip I have is dry fitting. And by dry fitting, I mean you want to check the pieces where they go before adding glue. So for our instructions here, here's the little leg, goes in. They actually show it from the back. It looks like it's a little easier to connect that way, so I'll flip it around the same way. And he does have a little peg that fits into this little hole, and that fits pretty nicely. Just do a quick little check, make sure it all lines up. And then we will move to glue. So I have two different glues pulled out for today. I have the super glue, which is probably what everyone has on their desk. It is just a basic super glue, adhesive glue that works really well. Super glue is really nice in that you can break things apart if you need to. I actually, when I'm doing basing, I will lightly tack them to bases so that I can remove them later. There are also things like debonders and things that if you need to get it apart, you can. It also gives you a fair amount of dry time to get pieces maneuvered where you need it. Super glue is great to have on hand because it works for plastic, resin, and metal miniatures, so it works for everything. But if you are working with a lot of plastic, I use a plastic glue. So I actually use Tamiya Extra Thin Cement. I like it because open, it has a brush. So it's really easy to apply. Plastic glue is different though. It is actually a solvent. So what it does is it'll actually slightly melt the plastic to create a really strong bond. So by melting both pieces of the plastic and smushing them together, you get a really strong bond that honestly you shouldn't be able to break apart. Depending on dry time, cure time, you can kind of weasel them back apart if you need to, if you realize you've got a piece in the wrong place. But once that is cured, once that's bonded together, they're gonna stay together. So that is kind of the word of warning, is if you're using the plastic glue, you are actually melting the plastic for your bond. And I kept this mat today to actually show you. Make sure you don't bump it, because you can see what it's done to my plastic cutting mat, is it has melted it here. So that is kind of the differences between the glues. Make sure you choose what you would like to use, whether the super glue or the plastic glue. Alright, and after a brief pause for my dog barking in the background, we're back. I'm going to be using my plastic glue, so dip it into the Tamiya. Put it right where we're going to connect these two pieces, so making sure to cover that. And then just like the dry fit that we did, making sure in there. I'm going to hold this for a few seconds, and depending on the glue, depending on humidity, it might take longer for these pieces to hold, but I'm basically going to hold it long enough that I can feel the glue kind of take over here. And with that, have the torso and leg together. And that is the basics of building. At this point, we're going to be rinse repeating. So that is kind of the process from piece out of the sprue and gluing to another piece. For mine, and within the instructions, the next is actually to glue it to the base. I'm going to use our other glue, our super glue, so that I can take him back off the base. I do all my basing at the end, but by doing a really light tack, I can remove him later. So I'm actually going to move the instructions so I don't have to move him around afterward. I'm going to use just a tiny bit of super glue. If you are not going to be removing them, if you like to do your basing around their feet, so it looks like they're in the terrain, then you can go ahead and apply more glue. Unfortunately, my glue looks like it is clogged, so I will get that here in just a moment. Okay, sorry about that. I was able to just clear the clog. I'm going to put a little bit on the feet. Okay. A tiny, tiny bit, so I can get it back off. Glue it to the base. At this point, I want to let that dry, let that cure, so I'm just going to set it off to the side. But I'll go ahead and do the next few parts so that you can see kind of the process again. So let's go ahead and clip out one of the heads. Again, we're going to be following this. With this, I know I can go ahead and hop to the head, but we'll go ahead and follow the instructions in. So let's go ahead and do a backpack. So this is piece number 2. So that is here. Backpack. Again, just clipping for these. I don't mind going right up kind of close to the piece so I have less of the nub to remove. Number 2. Sprue. And then there is the head option, so I'll go ahead and grab that too. So I'll go ahead with number 12 just to keep things easy. You'll find that a lot of building is just finding the right piece. Trying to find, there's number 12. Head removed. And then 4. So out of these, we'll go ahead, again, keeping it simple. 41 and 42. Wherever those are on the sprue, we'll go ahead and clip. Like they're going to be here, because here's all of our weapon options. 41. And then 42, which is the other arm that is just holding the weapon in place. These weapon options where they are both holding the gun can be a little tricky just because of glue time. You'll probably need to hold them in place a little bit longer. That's what we've got for this one here. Okay, so I'm bringing the body back into shot so you can see that. But let's go ahead and get the backpack cleaned up just like we did with the legs. So I'm going to start with the nubs. Our X-Acto knife. Here. Backpack. The other side. Bottom, because I can't remember yet. Here. Oh no, that's still open. Okay. And again, I tend to use the file stick more. This does not have the mold lines in the way that the torso did, so that's good. Do my best to get the one in there. Fine. Just like last time. Dry fit to make sure that it fits. This is kind of the back of the torso and the backpack. Great, we have a good fit there. So again, coming in with our plastic glue. around everywhere where those pieces will connect. And smush them together. Hold that in place. And a few seconds. This is drying pretty quick for me today, or at least holding pretty quickly today. Another really cool thing you can do with the plastic glue is if you have these pieces where they come together, because it is melting the plastic, you can actually run it right along that seam to kind of try and hide that seam. So if you put it right along here, where the two pieces join, and push them together, you can kind of remove that slight gap. I'm going to hold these together here with that plastic glue in between. And now you can get some of that gap removed as well. If I were to file over that too, that also helps to kind of hide where those two pieces join. So that's another really cool thing you can do with the plastic glue because it is actually melting the plastic. We've got that there. I'm going to go ahead and do the head first. A bit easier, and then we will get those arms. And the nub. A piece like this would be, again, I'll show the scraper. To keep the shape, but remove that little bit of excess that we don't need. A piece like this is a good candidate for a scraper tool. Okay, that ready, same thing. So here, because it's just the ball socket, don't really need a dry fit. You could. I'll have them looking off to the side a little bit. This. And we'll clean up the arms. And at that point, our first miniature should be built, and it's a matter of building the rest of the squad, but all the same steps. Adding nubs with the X-Acto. These do have a bit of a seam line on the weapon, so quickly. Down the top a bit to match. Another trick as you're doing the sanding sticks or the scraper, you can actually feel to make sure that it's even as you go. So you'll see me do that a lot. As after I file, just kind of feel it to make sure it's real smooth to the touch. Blend it in nicely. And I'm going to go ahead and clean up both arms before I put them on, just so we can get them positioned to where he's holding it. Because they, like I said, they can be a little tricky if you have the Marines with bolters, weapons across their chest. It can be a little tricky to get them lined up and to stay while you're holding the glue. So let's go ahead and do that together. See it? Alright, I don't think I can get my file in there, but I can get his shoulder. Go ahead and set these arms. Go ahead and start with the larger one. And get it positioned where. Has a nice flat surface, so just making sure it is nice and flat against it. Sometimes finding the angle that you can see where everything's gluing can help. So I've got it kind of wedged up into his shoulder. Get the best kind of contact spot that I can. I'm going to hold that until it feels pretty stable and I can go ahead and move around. Okay. Once that is on, you can see holding fairly well. It's not cured yet, but this one, he does have a little bit of a peg on the arm that will slot into here. So kind of holding that first arm with my finger in the back. Go ahead and apply glue here and then also to the weapon. 2 contact points. And then doing my best. Wedged in to where I can hit both. Perfect. So I kind of came in underneath to get under that shoulder. And kind of wedge it in to where I can connect both his hand at his wrist and then the shoulder. And with that, we've built a mini. It's rinse and repeat for the rest of the squad. It will be, I like to do kind of one more pass to make sure there's no mold lines or seam lines that I've missed. If there's any parts where I can smooth it over with the plastic glue, I will usually do that at this point. And then it'll be ready for priming and painting. And that's it for assembling plastic miniatures. I hope that was helpful for anyone just getting into the hobby, maybe new to Warhammer kits, or if you've had a break off and looking at these new kits. If you have any questions at all, please let us know in the comments. We will revisit the metal and resin miniatures at a later date and the prep required for that, so be sure to like and subscribe for future videos. If you're looking for a fun community to come hobby with, we're also live over on Twitch, so that is in the description if you want to come join us there. But for now, thank you so much for checking out the video. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye!